What's up, wall fans, Common Sensors podcast consumers? Welcome to the video feed for Common Sense Sundays with Go Tell It to the Wall, and this is going to be episode 71. What can I say? It's been a hell of a week since the last time we were in the studio. I'm going to do my best to keep things lively, but given the state of the world right now, and God, I don't even know. So I'm going to do my best to give you a little bit of a break from that, but we are, of course, going to have to unpack a lot of things going on over the past week. Not only world events, but for those of you, and it's very numerous with our wall fans that are in the punk scene, we're also going to at least briefly address some of that stuff that's been going on. So all that being said, let's get straight into episode 70. Episode 71. That's why I write it on the board, and I still forget.
Who 1, 2, 3, go tell it to the wall. Tell it to the wall. Go tell it to the wall. Tell it to the wall.
All right, wall fans, Common Sensors, podcast consumers. Welcome to episode 71 of Common Sense Sundays with Go Tell It to the Wall, hosted by me, of course, your absolute favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke. And as I said at the top of the video feed, it's been a week. I'm going to do my best. I'm by no means an expert on really anything, but I'm going to do my best to unpack some things with some common sense, but at the same time, hopefully give all the listeners out there at least a little bit of a reprieve from the madness that's been going on in our world. But like I said, we're going to have to address some of it, of course, using common sense. But before we get into the thick of it, we always kick things off with our social plugs. You can keep up with us during episodes, after episodes, for episodes, whenever you so please, and you can do that in multiple locations. One of those would be facebook.com/GoTellItToTheWall. That's right, facebook.com/GoTellItToTheWall. Make sure you follow our page over there. That's going to keep you up to date on all new episodes, new content, new videos, all that great stuff. So if you are a Facebook user, you should be following us. It costs you nothing. Then, of course, YouTube. Head on over to youtube.com/GoTellItToTheWall. That's right, youtube.com/GoTellItToTheWall. That is our official YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe. You're going to find all of our video feeds. They get posted there as well, as, in addition to our beer reviews, parenting playlists, mental health Mondays, all that good stuff. So make sure if you're a YouTube user that you're subscribed to our channel. Again, it costs you nothing. It's amazing how that works. And then, of course, my own personal Instagram account, which is at SoCalSean. Again, at SoCalSean, SoCalSean. Follow me on there. You're going to get more than just Go Tell It to the Wall and Common Sense Sunday content. But there will also be a lot of that. And if you're one of our kind of, punk scene listeners, you're going to get a lot of those photos as well. So make sure if you're an Instagram user, follow my own personal Instagram account right over there on the gram, as the kids say. I don't really know what the kids say these days. I feel like it was Insta at one time, it was the gram at one time. Are we calling it IG now? I don't know. I'm a little too old for the most up-to-date lingo, but follow us on Instagram. That is definitely a word for it. And of course, most importantly, and all-inclusive of those things I just mentioned would be SeanO'RourkeLive.com. That's right, SeanO'RourkeLive.com. That's our official website for everything Go Tell It to the Wall and Sean O'Rourke Live. You're going to find exclusive content on there that you don't find on any of those other platforms. And you're also going to find a link for our Patreon campaign. Become a patron if you have the means to do so. And if you don't want to do that, you can support us by picking up some Go Tell It to the Wall merch through our merch website, linked directly from SeanO'RourkeLive.com. So make sure you're picking up some common sense clothing, t-shirts, mugs, all that kind of good stuff, all right there on the merch website. And bear with me today. It's been a hell of a week, and I can't blame the hell of a week on this. The reason for it is actually a fun reason, but my voice is not 100% today. You might be hearing a little bit of a raspiness. I'm not sick, but I did put my voice through the ringer this last Friday, and we'll have more on that later as we recap one of the best shows of the year, this young year, I guess, 2022, that I was attending on Friday. So more on that later. All right, let's get into some digital trends. Apparently today is hashtag Pokemon Day. That's right, hashtag Pokemon Day. And I don't say this as I'm too cool for it or anything, but I honestly, I have Never played any kind of Pokemon. I know what Pokemon is. I think I was just at the wrong age when Pokemon either first came about or first came to the U.S. or whatever. I do remember it. I'm of the age where I remember a Pokemon card game. Since then, it's evolved into like video games and mobile games and all that kind of good stuff. But apparently, it is the anniversary of Pokemon, which was launched in 1996. So again, I think I was just a little too old for it. Not too cool, just wasn't in my ballpark or whatever word you want to use there. Ninja Turtles. If there had been like a Ninja Turtles card game in the 80s, probably would have been playing that one. I will say, so for all of you out there that enjoy playing Pokemon, celebrate your Pokemon Day. I think it looked like the mobile game maybe put out some new characters or something. I was seeing that blowing up on the social platforms. What I will say is I appreciate this. And I've said it before, make sure you have capitalizations within your hashtags. When Pokemon Go, the mobile game, I do know the name of the mobile game came out years ago, people were sharing the hashtag Pokemon Go, but they weren't capitalizing the P or the G. So it essentially looked like hashtag Pokemongo, and that's what would have happened here. Luckily, the hashtags that I've seen flying around have a capital P and a capital D. Otherwise, it would be Poke Monday, and you'd be like, why are we poking at Monday? And I'll be honest, when the hashtags first came out years ago, I was like, why is everybody poking Mongo? And who's Mongo? But I digress. It's one of my pet peeves. It's like, just throw some capital letters in there. Otherwise, it gets confusing and hard to read. I've never been a big fan of hashtags anyway. I use them because you have to these days. That's a way to keep your stuff organized in the digital realm. But thank you for capitalizing within that hashtag. All right. I think the theme of this episode is going to be, like I said, I am not an expert on really anything. You could argue that I have some film knowledge because I have a bachelor's degree in film. So I spent, it took me 3 years to get my bachelor's, but I did spend 3 years studying film, but I still wouldn't even call myself an expert there. So everything we do within these podcasts is revolving around common sense and kind of the little bit of knowledge or research that I can do going into things. I always encourage people to look further in with their own research, fact check, look at these things. And, with them, I very much top line things. This one I didn't want to do a ton of research on, but it's a trend you've probably seen floating around the social platforms. And I believe I've broached this slightly in the past, but a thing that's going around right now, and it's not just on social platforms, it's the pictures popping up, but people are sticking these Joe Biden stickers and it says, I did that, and it's like pointing at a gas pump or a gas pump price, and they're sticking them on gas pumps, saying, well, look at what Biden's doing. Look at all this crazy Biden and these high gas prices and stuff. I am not an economist. I got a decent grade, but I barely took any kind of economics in high school and shit. We didn't take economics in film school, for the love of God. That just wasn't something you had to do. There's minimal credits from outside of doing actual film work. But with minimal research here, it's easy to see that the president doesn't actually set gas prices. This has nothing to do directly with the president. And you can, again, I encourage you to do your own research. Find out exactly what causes the rise in gas prices and all these other things. It's silly to sit back and first of all, take the time to put these stickers up. It's just, who has the time? You're complaining about gas prices, but you're spending money on stickers. So that makes total sense, and then on top of that, just do a little bit of research. And I can tell you, I am also of an age where I did remember paying less than $1 for gasoline. Less than $1. I can tell you the last time I paid less than $1 for gasoline was Christmas Eve 2001, and it was 88 cents a gallon. Now, basically from that day forward, gas prices just gradually climbed. Now, of course, they dip down here and there. And I do live in California where we have very high gas prices. But who was the president at that time? And who was the president during that crazy rise in gas prices? People weren't necessarily getting on him about it. They weren't blaming that particular president. So it's really people shaping a narrative to what they like and dislike. Again, do a little research yourself and stop wasting money on stickers when you're complaining how shitty the economy is. Like you don't have money for gas, but you got money for stupid stickers. What's your mission? Make people dumber? Good. That's great. That's a great way to spend money. All right, we're going to get serious here and there on certain things. It's unavoidable. It's the world we're in right now. That's the environment that's going on around the world, around this country and other countries. So a couple hashtags that are trending right now would be hashtag Hey Putin and hashtag Russian Army. And this is essentially people that are trying to tweet at Putin and at the Russian army. So you're seeing a lot of stuff from the front line in Ukraine. Now, when I say front line, it's a lot of civilians, and there's military stuff that you can see, and definitely be careful from a mental health standpoint, because you don't want to go down those holes and just put yourself in a really, really bad place. We're going to talk about that when we get to mental health today. But this is definitely trending, and if you're curious to see what's going on the front lines and what's actually happening in Ukraine, you're going to get firsthand stuff there. Again, fact check. We're going to talk more about that later on in Common Sense, but make sure you are fact checking before you're sharing stuff. But it's very interesting. And I always, as silly as it seems for people to be utilizing social media, there's a lot of people in Ukraine right now that's all they can do. So they're trying to get that information out there. They're trying to show what's actually happening on the ground instead of getting news reports from the Russian government, for example. So I would encourage you to check those out if it's something that you want further knowledge on. We should all at least have a minimal knowledge of what's going on over there, to the point that where you realize it is absolutely a human rights thing. It's not a political thing. This is a country invading another country unprovoked and killing people for no reason. And families, kids, parents, grandparents, all sheltering in place, hoping that they don't get bombed. That's what we're in right now. But you can see people standing up. In fact, these are two things that have been trending on the social platforms over the past few days. One of them would be sunflower seeds. We're going to talk about that. And the other one is go fuck yourself. Apologies. There's going to be some F-bombs today because fuck Putin. But we're going to talk about go fuck yourself as well. Ukrainian people are not backing down. It's amazing to, as sad as it is, and as much as your heart hurts for the people of Ukraine, it is inspiring to see their fortitude and the way that they are standing up to Russian soldiers and the Russian government. And one of those, if you're not familiar with the story, there was a woman in the Ukraine who went right up to some Russian soldiers and was like, "What are you doing here? You need to leave." And she said, "If you're not going to leave, at least put these sunflower seeds in your pockets so when you die on Ukrainian soil, sunflowers will sprout where you died." And apparently the sunflower, I don't quote me on this, somebody can double check it. I believe the sunflower is the national flower of the Ukraine. And that's, so not only is it like, you could have said any seed, but the national flower of Ukraine. So good on that lady. And I don't wish death upon anybody, but hopefully she's right, and a lot of these Russian soldiers are going to meet their end because they have no business being in the Ukraine. And that's the same thing with the go fuck yourself sentiment. We're seeing this pop up. A lot of people are either posting it or it's going up on signs throughout the Ukraine. And there was a group of 13 heroes that were trying to defend an island called Snake Island. And basically when a Russian warship told them to stand down, they said, go fuck yourself. Unfortunately, they lost their lives, but they stood up for what they believe in, and they stood up to the Russian soldiers that were attacking them. So again, extremely sad to see, but good on the citizens of Ukraine for not just backing down. And of course, this one, it's a very similar hashtag, but we are having hashtag Ukraine-Russian war. The thing that drives me nuts about this is I went, I never deep dive, like I've said. I went into a little bit of a dive on this one in the social realm, specifically Twitter. And a lot of people are putting up polls and such and saying, who's going to win the war? Who will win, Russia or Ukraine? And it really hit me. Because it's like, this isn't a sport. This isn't like, who's going to win the Super Bowl? Who's going to win the World Cup? No, these are people's lives at stake. This is an entire country of people being attacked. It's not something we should say, well, who's going to win? No. What we should be hoping for is that humanity wins out. I mean, I spent last episode talking about fuck Russia because of the Olympics. Well, this is a whole nother realm of that. Have respect. It's people's lives. All right, let's talk about some COVID updates. There's going to be a lot more of that peppered throughout, and I hate that it has to be, but it's the world we live in right now, and that's what's been. it's crazy to look at the last episode we did a week ago, and then now here we are, because, when it was ramping up to this, you kind of had not to this scale, what we're seeing now in the news. All right, COVID updates. Omicron continues to recede, and I'm going to say it again, that doesn't mean it's over. We have done this before. We've done this a couple times. We're almost 2 years into this. We're a couple weeks away from being 2 years into, we're more than 2 years into COVID being a thing. We're a couple weeks away from being 2 years into when lockdowns started in the U.S., and I think other countries are well past 2 years since lockdowns were starting there. So we don't want to get complacent. We already know there are other variants out there. We've done this. We did this with Delta. We did this with whatever the other variant was, and they pop up. And I think patience is key here, because if we would have continued with safety measures and everything else until numbers receded more through each of these surges, we'd probably be in a better position today than we are right now. And that's something to keep in mind. So just because the Omicron variant is continuing to recede doesn't mean we're out of this. Other variants out there, other problems out there. We're not done. We just aren't. And of course, mandates are being eased everywhere. It's happening even here in California, where they're saying, oh, you don't need to wear a mask, and all these kinds of things. And again, we've done this before. And then it gets worse again. So while, yes, do your best to continue living your life and doing things that you need to do, don't get too complacent and let it sneak up on you. I mean, geez, especially people that have avoided COVID for 2 years. Can you imagine? 2 years of not getting it, and suddenly you get it. That's crazy to me. And no masks indoors for vaccinated people. That's a big thing that's happening in multiple states across the country. I think it's happening in other countries as well. I believe Canada has started lifting mask mandates. Here's the thing with this. I get it. Yes, it's safer for fully vaccinated people and everything else. But nobody's checking. So they say, well, you can go into this event space or this restaurant without a mask if you're vaccinated. But at the same time, they're not checking. So here's the common sense of that. Most likely people that felt the personal responsibility to get vaccinated and get a booster are probably going to wear masks anyway. So what we're doing is we're putting this in the hands of people who probably haven't been honest this entire time, haven't wanted to wear masks, and they're just going to walk around saying, well, I'm vaccinated. And who knows if they actually are. I'm still going to wear my mask in crowded areas. That's just personal responsibility for me, safety for me and my family. I will continue to do that. And I would encourage everyone out there too, just be smart with how you're navigating this part of the pandemic. That's all it is. Just use common sense. It's not going to be worth getting it just because you're like, I don't want to wear a mask over my face. And that's the other thing too, is everyone's complaining, this is tyranny. I have to wear a mask for 20 minutes in the grocery store. You want to talk about tyranny? Look what's happening in the Ukraine right now. We have people in this country, in the U.S., and other countries as well, but especially in the U.S., complaining about masks, while the people of Ukraine are being attacked. And all the men over there, like 18 to 60, are being asked to go fight in a war. What would you rather do? Wear a mask or fight in a war? You're not being oppressed. Stop equating that in such ways, because it's not right to do that. And of course, we have the anti-mandate truck convoy making its way toward Washington, D.C. Again, complaining about tyranny and personal freedom and all these other things. It's absolutely ridiculous. And put that in perspective compared to Ukraine again. My other favorite thing about this is we have these truckers driving from California to Washington, D.C. You know that, and then they're going to complain about the gas prices. It's like, well, you didn't need to fucking drive to D.C. That's on you, man. What do you think you're going to accomplish? Nothing. Nothing, other than just looking like a jackass. That's what we're dealing with there. Toddler shit. Toddler tantrums. More of it. More and more of it in this country. All right. Let's throw a little mental health perspective into this. Now, obviously, the people taking the bulk of this are the Ukrainian people, the citizens of Ukraine. But even those of us that aren't within that country or even bordering it, you can feel the effects of that because you see this news coming out. There's so many different things. And your heart just breaks for the Ukraine. If it doesn't, you need to check your morality. People out here cheering for Putin. Come on. You can't think this is right. People are dying for no reason over land because of a greedy, tyrannical president in Russia. And we've seen even I don't want to say most, I don't know the exact numbers, but plenty of Russian citizens don't want this happening either. So even if you're not in the thick of it, the toll can be evident. And as much as I say, do your own research, understand what's going on, if you need to step away from it, definitely do that as well, because you can feel helpless. There's only so much you can do outside of the Ukraine where people are picking up arms against Russia. So know that you're not alone when that comes to your mental health. It's very important to, I don't want to say compartmentalize, but do what you can without letting it affect you in a negative way that's going to affect your daily life or your family's daily life or your professional daily life, whatever it might be. Because it is terrible to feel helpless. And if you do want to do something and you're not in the Ukraine, obviously, or you're not in Russia to go protest, you can go there's plenty of protests around the U.S., around the world right now. There's also organizations that you can donate to literally directly help the people of Ukraine. Maybe we'll try to post some of those on Facebook. But again, do a little bit of research. And if that's something you want to do and you have the means to do, then do so. And I'm not saying do it to make yourself feel better necessarily, but if you just really want to help and it's affecting you mentally, those are some ways to help. Make your voice heard. And the other thing is I absolutely, and it's fractional compared to what the people of Ukraine are actually going through. But if you're of a certain age, and even if you're not of a certain age, you hear things like, well, Russia is ramping up their nuclear weapons so that they're more ready in case they have to be used. That's terrifying. For those of us that lived through the 80s, heard this like crazy, the Cold War, everything else, it's Cuban Missile Crisis. It's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying, and that can have a toll on your mental health. But that's where understanding can come in. There's a very small chance of actually nuclear war. However, sometimes, depending on, like myself, mental illness, I just fixate on that. And it's terrifying to me, especially having lived through the 80s. And for me personally, when this first started ramping up, and there have been, I've lived through multiple wars where Jesus, Afghanistan. But for me, as a kid in the late 80s, early 90s, when the Gulf War started, seeing this footage brought up personally, and I know I'm not the only one, brought up memories of that from 1990 or 91, whenever it was that they declared war. The first President Bush actually declared war, and Congress approved it, and we went into the Gulf War. And for me, I wasn't in the thick of it, obviously, because I wasn't in the Middle East, but I grew up in San Diego. That is a military town. And at that time, you had a naval base, you had an Air Force base, and you had a Marine base. Now you just have a couple of Marine bases and a naval base down there. Planes, not fighting above us, but planes flying out. Lots of military personnel coming through San Diego. So I know I'm not the only one that can drudge up those memories. So be informed, but sometimes turn off the TV. And put things into perspective for yourself. That's what helps me the most. As sad as it is, you have to try to put things in perspective as much as you can. And just take care of yourself. Don't let it, it's okay to have feelings and do what you can and be angry. Don't let that affect your kids or your relationships or your friend, whatever. You can't let it become that debilitating. And that's something to keep in mind, especially if you deal with a mental illness. Ooh, I'm bumping my speaker over here. And other things. Sorry, Jay. Bumping my my Jay in action figure over there. All right, let's talk about some positive news. This is kind of a funky one. It's funny. I debated not even having a positive news piece for this episode, but since it's my podcast and I really wanted to kind of give a good on ya to a particular group, we're going to talk about this certain news piece. So Tool, the band Tool, I've never been a big fan of Tool. I know they have a gigantic fan base. I don't dislike them, just never been a big fan. You know, I'm not in my musical genre usually. But they were having a concert in D.C., and they have a huge fan base, so their concerts are rather large. I think they're doing arena shows and stuff, not small club shows like I like to go to. So huge crowds. And again, this isn't fully positive, but ends that way. The band actually stopped mid-show. There was a fan toward the front near the stage, and the band noticed that the fan was having a medical issue. Not sure exactly what the medical issue was, and was having the paramedics were having trouble getting to the fan. So what they did was they stopped the concert, and they made sure everyone made space for the fan of theirs to get help, medical help. And then after the fan was properly taken out of there and got the help they needed, they continued the show. Like I said, continued the concert. And I'm sorry, Kanye, this is not a poke at Travis Scott or whatever. It's merely a good on you for Tool for being aware of their fans and taking the time to do that. And it's big awareness. And this, I've talked about it before. This reminds me of Amy Interrupter. And she didn't even have to stop the song. But young fan in the crowd, not far from where I was, in fact, right up against the rail, was having trouble, was like passing out. And I think because just a large crowd, probably dehydrated. And Amy pointed her out. Security guards reached over and got her. And not only did they get her out of there, but Amy took one of her water bottles and handed it down to make sure the young lady got some water out of it. It's important to remember those things. So good on you, Tool. I'm not a huge fan, but you got to love that. You really do. So a little positive news for your episode 71 of Common Sense Sundays. I'll tell you, I'm drinking more water than usual because the voice is just not, it is not there completely. I'm sure everyone can hear it. It's just not. And a lot of yelling and singing on Friday night, and then found myself at an event with a bunch of friends yesterday, and I don't shut up usually, so around friends. I'm very socially awkward, but when I get around friends, I don't shut up, and it's been 2 days of constant talking and singing and cheering. All right, let's talk some parenting. I'm going to talk about another thing that I think, just a little bit too old for, but Arthur, the animated series Arthur, which is also books. I believe it was books first. If you're not familiar with Arthur, you've probably seen the meme with the clenched fist. That's Arthur. It's a decent animated show. I won't say that I love it. My kid has watched it a little bit, but it's a very, very popular show. It's been around for like 25 years or something. So there's multiple generations of fans. So I'm sure there are parents out there who are like, I watched this as a kid, much like I am with Sesame Street. Like, I watched this as a kid. Love when my kid watches it. Love watching it with her. So it's not to say anything bad about the show. It's just I was never a watcher of it. Interested. So it's a sad day for those big fans out there. But you'll still be able to catch reruns. You'll still be able to share it with your kid. It was interesting, though, for those of you not aware, they ended it with like a flash forward to all Arthur and all of his friends that the show's based on in the future as adults, younger adults, like probably in their 20s or maybe 30 or whatever, to kind of round it out. So it seems like a lot of people enjoyed that. So goodbye to Arthur from parenting's perspective, and for all of you out there that loved it, you'll still be able to watch it. Just no new episodes coming out. We don't talk about Bruno. It's funny. We've talked about this recently. Punk Rock Factory covered it. It finally overtook Let It Go as the number one animated movie, Disney animated movie song. Here's the thing. It's approaching Let It Go status, at least in my house. And I know this is happening elsewhere. Because it takes, if my kid, she doesn't even have to hear the song. If somebody just says, we don't talk about Bruno, she will sing it for a minimum of 10 minutes. And that's what's been killing me, is because during the day, we don't have the TV on a lot in my house. My kid watches a little bit of TV in the evening. My wife and I will watch TV, a little bit of TV after the kid goes to bed. Unless there's, I enjoy sporting events. So if there's a certain sporting event, maybe my kid and I will watch it together. But for the most part, we don't have TV on. But what I do is I have talk radio on in the house. It's kind of background, as I'm doing work around the house or working on stuff for Go Tell It to the Wall, whatever it might be. And it's kind of the point where talk radio shows are mentioning it or using it as a drop is what they call it in the radio industry. And sure enough, my kid will hear it and she's just walking around singing it. And then I get it in my head and it takes like an hour to get it out of there. And then sure enough, an hour later, another talk radio show is using it for a drop or mentioning it and then starts the cycle again. So let's be careful with We Don't Talk About Bruno. Let's not make it as bad as Let It Go. Let's small bites at that apple instead of getting hit over the head with it because you can't escape it right now. And one of the most heartbreaking things I have seen over the past week, and I dropped it in parenting and it really hit me hard, and it kept hitting me hard, and I've gotten to the point where I have to avoid it because it keeps popping up. But there is a viral video of a Ukrainian father and daughter. The father is putting his daughter, who looks to be 3 or 4, maybe 5 at the most, putting her on a train to evacuate from the Ukraine. And he's staying behind to fight for Ukraine against Russia. And while I will say be careful depending on if you have a particular trigger, because this is a huge trigger for my mental health, huge, having a daughter at home. It's absolutely heartbreaking to see. But it also gives you perspective as a parent. So as much as it was killing me, I had to stop because my OCD was just fixating on this. And I felt so bad for the father. I felt so bad for the daughter. And all I could think of was, what if this was happening to me and my daughter? But if it's not going to put you into a bad place necessarily, I would encourage you to check it out because that right there is humanity, and that gives you perspective as a parent. If you're getting irritated, I'm talking in a joking way. We don't talk about Bruno. Pales in comparison to what that father is going through. There's a good chance he's never going to see his daughter again. There's a good chance that daughter is never going to see her father again. And that's heartbreaking. If that doesn't break your heart, you don't have a heart. So, I hate saying it, but as much prayers, thoughts, good vibes as you can send to the Ukraine so that we don't have to continue seeing this. People losing their parents, children in harm's way. It's too much to bear even for those of us that are not actually in the Ukraine. And I just cannot imagine the pain and suffering that they are all going through. Especially from a parenting perspective like that. I mean, especially from any perspective, but when you see that video, it's going to bring tears to your eyes. If you haven't seen it yet, be prepared. All right, let's get into lots and lots of common sense today. We might actually be a little, we'll see. We'll see if we go a little short on time today. You're probably getting some background noise. My kid, speaking of parenting, my kid was at the park with my wife, and I can hear them coming into the house right now. That's what's unfortunate about the positioning of my studio is it kind of shares a wall with my front porch. So if anyone's coming in my front door while I'm recording, you're probably getting a little background noise from them. Hopefully the mic's not picking up too much of that. But that's life. When Go Tell It to the Wall first started, I used to get angry about, not angry, but irritated about, cause where I live, there's a lot of helicopters flying around. Be like, the helicopters again, and get irritated. And then you listen to Mark Maron's podcast, and he's like, well, here come the helicopters again. I was like, well, okay. I'm not the only one, and he's pretty well known podcast putting out by Mark Maron. All right, some common sense here. There's a lot of footage out there of what's happening in Ukraine, but we have come to learn over the past couple days that there's footage and images from the Ukraine that are not necessarily current. From a few years ago. There's a couple viral pictures, in fact, that are from 4 or 5 years ago or something in the Ukraine. So I would say, from a common sense standpoint, there's plenty of current footage out there, and I wouldn't get on people too much for sharing something that seems compelling or important to the environment we're in right now, because some of those old footage and those old images were shared by verified accounts and news people and all kinds of other things. So I wouldn't be too hard on them because everything's moving so quickly right now. But I would say this is another example where just take a quick moment to fact check. Because, again, there's plenty of stuff out there that is current. If you're looking to share something current, to spread accurate information, it's out there. Just take a moment and do a little fact check, do a little Snopes or whatever the main fact checking thing is these days. I usually just go through Snopes, or if you can even like reverse search an image, that's the thing. And if you reverse search an image, it's like, oh, this is from 2017 or whatever it might be. So take the time if you want to be accurate. It's possible to do that. Just double check whenever you're disseminating information. Even if you're like, well, I have 100 followers, who cares? It's like, well, yeah, but you still want to be accurate. So keep that in mind, because there's a lot of that going around right now. A lot of this going around right now too. Americans praising Putin. Vladimir Putin has fans in the United States of America. This is absolutely astounding to me. It's extra astounding too because, and I'm not going to sit here and try to, chastise a certain group, but we're seeing most of it come from the GOP. Let's be honest. Ronald Reagan is rolling over in his grave hearing that right now. Can you imagine the Republicans of the 80s being like, yeah, Russia, yeah. No. That would not be the case at all. And I laugh because it's so uber ridiculous. It's not a funny thing. It's just so ridiculous that all you can do is be like, what the hell? Pro-Putin chants at rallies. That's what's happening. And in fact, the Orange Menace, when Russia first started invading Ukraine just days ago, came out and talked about how brilliant Putin is. He's brilliant for invading a foreign country unprovoked and killing people. That's literally what Trump is saying. The Orange Menace is out there saying, this is great. He's killing Ukrainians just to take land. Like, holy shit. And that's what everyone's like, oh, Biden's weak. This would never happen if Trump was in office. No, it would have happened and Trump would have sent troops to help Russia. That's what we're looking at here. You can't argue this. The stupid son of a bitch came out and said this. It's on record. There's no denying it. You go, oh, he twisted his words. Nope. Not at all. He said he's brilliant for invading Ukraine and killing people. It's absolutely mind-blowing. There's people out there that you think, man, they can't get any dumber or any worse or any more evil, and then shit like that happens. Absolutely crazy. It's crazy to me. But of course, we have other companies and groups that are stepping up and, sanctions. And I am not an expert in anything. I'm not going to talk about sanctions, but I did find this one interesting. Adidas has halted tracksuit sales in Russia. So, if you're familiar with the tracksuit, Adidas, they have the 3-line ones. They're real popular tracksuits, and especially in Russia, they're very, very popular. It's a big style choice for a lot of Russian citizens, and because the Russian mafia. I don't know much about the Russian mafia, and yes, I watched Hawkeye. That it's a little funny, but it's also a serious matter, so I don't want to get into that. But good on Adidas for doing this. It seems like such a little thing, but as I was saying in mental health, if you're looking for something to do, there are things that can be done. So Adidas isn't going to stop the war by any means, but they're doing what they can to make a point that Russia shouldn't be doing this. So good on Adidas. And here's the thing, everyone out there is but you love Vans. Yes, I am a Vans guy. I own more Vans than I should, more pairs of Vans shoes. But my running shoes are Adidas. My running and walking and workout shoes are usually Adidas. My racing shoes are Adidas when I finally get back around to racing, road races, and triathlons. I race in Adidas. So close to my heart from that perspective, as much as I don't wear them daily. I wear them for athletic reasons, really, or walking, stuff like that. My Vans are different usage. You got to have that, At the same time, I wear Nike basketball shoes. I haven't played basketball in a few years, but I have been a basketball player as an adult, still worn Nike basketball shoes. So good on you, Adidas, for as small as it seems, for actually doing something. Because they're going to lose money off of it, too. But they're taking a stand and making a point. And we have Anonymous. Good on Anonymous. Good Lord. I'm not a big fan of hackers, but it's hard to, not Hackers the movie, hackers in general, the people that enjoy hacking computers. I am a fan of Hackers the movie. It's so cheesy and it's fantastic. It's great. I mean, Matthew Lillard's magnum opus is Hackers. But I digress. Anonymous, the hacking group Anonymous, they have actually declared cyber war on Russia. So they are going after Russia from a cyber perspective, not from a tanks and guns perspective. And in fact, a half an hour after announcing that they were going after Russia, they actually took down RT-TV, which I'm not real familiar with, but from my understanding, it is a Russian propaganda channel where they use it to spread a lot of information. I imagine it's like a Newsmax, or a InfoWars, that type of thing, and good on Anonymous for taking them down. And it's funny, because as much as I don't support illegal hacking that's going after people, but sometimes you got to step up and go after social justice. And it very much reminded me of, and for taking things full circle, reminded me of Mr. Robot, my all-time favorite show. I got Elliot right here, for those of you watching the video. He always sits right there by my stuff. I got the other characters on the shelf behind me, but Elliot sits right there. My favorite show of all time. And I was actually at I'm going to talk more details about the show, but the show I was at on Friday, somebody noticed my F Society patch on my jacket and actually wanted to take a picture of it. They're like, that is so cool. And we had a moment of like, yeah, Mr. Robot, it's so great. Just to get tangented there a little bit. But hopefully Anonymous can do some more damage from the cyber perspective there in Russia. All right, MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene. She decided to be a special guest at a white nationalist rally. And this isn't even debatable because, you say, oh, GOP, ha, 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 white nationalists. And no, this was literally a white nationalist leader was putting on this rally, and she was the special guest at it. And she's, of course, catching some heat for it and has no real excuse. Her excuse was, I just wanted to speak to these people about upcoming elections and stuff. It's like, no. You are out there supporting a white nationalist rally. And we just continue to let this woman do things like this and not get censored or anything happening in Congress whatsoever. But that's the world we live in. And in fact, this rally is one of the rallies that had a pro-Putin chant multiple times throughout the rally. And the most frustrating thing about all it, that's the thing. I'm not even that frustrated by MTG. You kind of expect that kind of shit from her now. What's frustrating is it's continuing to be normalized. We're just like, yep, that sounds right. That's the world we live in now, and we got to stop that. We shouldn't just sit there and be like, well, white nationalists are holding rallies. No. Kick Nazis in the fucking face. And I'm not going to endorse violence against a congresswoman, but she was there. Does she deserve to get kicked in the face too? That's for you to decide. I'll keep my decision to myself on that one. I'm not going to threaten people here. Pro-Putin chants. Jesus Christ. Common sense says you're a politician, you're at a rally, not only at a white nationalist rally, but as soon as they start chanting for Putin, get the fuck out of there. No. She's, yeah. Holy Jesus Christ. All right, Russian sports events. Certain international sports events have already been pulled from Russia. I believe there was a tennis tournament that was a pro tennis tournament that was pulled, and a couple other things have been pulled from there. And there's a lot of talk around World Cup qualifying. World Cup every 4 years is huge. The biggest worldwide sporting event, and I'm not even a soccer fan. I watch the World Cup, and I don't have any problem with soccer. I'm not a big watcher of soccer. But I do watch the World Cup. Most of the world watches the World Cup. Soccer is the number one sport throughout the world, I believe. I don't know if that's changed, but for the most part, it seems like the number one sport. And there are playoff games in that part of Europe in order to make it to the World Cup. Specifically, Poland is supposed to play Russia in Russia. They have already said they will not play Russia. And shortly following that, the Czech Republic and Sweden also said they will not play Russia in the World Cup qualifiers. A couple things I want to unpack here, and then we're going to move on to some entertainment news. Now, first of all, there is a small chance. We need FIFA. For those of you not familiar with FIFA, this is the world governing organization for international soccer. They put on the World Cup. They oversee all of these playoffs and these games to qualify for the World Cup and whatnot. So the problem, and I'm hoping that they do step up and just completely kick Russia out of, take away their eligibility for the World Cup, which, we talked about this with the Olympics. Russia should not be in any international. You want to have leagues there in Russia? fine. The KHL, that's great. Keep it in your own country. You shouldn't be out there cheating against international competitors. But now we're seeing even more reason for them to not play in the World Cup. But there is a possibility that if FIFA doesn't step up, Poland refuses to play and it's a forfeit, and Sweden refuses to play and it's a forfeit, and the Czech Republic refuses to play and it's a forfeit, then Russia could actually just get into the World Cup without having to even play. So I'm hoping FIFA steps up in this instance because it's very important. And I don't want to get into. There's a lot of talk out there about how corrupt FIFA is. I'm not that familiar with it, so maybe if you care to, do your own research on this. Another thing that has popped up with this as I was doing a little, kind of social media research on it is a lot of people are saying, "Oh, keep politics out of sports." Poland shouldn't be doing this. They shouldn't get political on stuff like this. And it's absolutely amazing to me because, and if you've listened to Go Tell It to the Wall for any amount of time, you know that athletes have every right to speak up on politics, anything that they please. That's just how it is. You can say, well, that's a politician, and look at the politicians we have, for the love of God. MTG and that Babbert woman, like whatever her name is. Like, really? Yeah, they're more qualified? Okay. Calm yourselves. But here's the real kicker on this. This isn't politics. This is like the Black Lives Matter. And it's not like the Black Lives Matter movement, but what I can say is athletes in this country, they got so much flack for speaking up in favor of Black Lives Matter. And people would give them a hard time. Don't get political. Don't get political. However you want to frame it, it's not politics. It's people dying. That was people of color dying. This is Ukrainians dying, being killed. This is a madman directing the military to go take over a country unprovoked. It's not politics. Don't get those things confused. This is people's lives. And if you're dumb enough to sit there and conflate people's lives with politics, you need to check your head. It's as simple as that. Because it's not. It's lives. It's livelihood. It's humanity. And if you're one of those people, go watch that video with the dad putting his daughter on a train and going to fight against Russia. Likely, I don't want to say likely, but good chance he never sees his daughter again. Humanity. Have some fucking humanity. Politics. Stay out of politics. Fuck you. That's all I can say to that. If you're one of those people, just turn off the podcast. Don't subscribe. Don't tell your friends. This is not for you. Equating human life to politics. Give me a break. All right, entertainment news. Let's liven it up a little bit here. Let me stretch the back out a little bit because I got very tense. My back. I woke up this morning too. My back was very sore. We haven't gotten to my recap of the show, but I realized, and part of it is I hadn't been good about my workouts lately, and so past couple weeks I started ramping it back up again, and what happened was Friday, I was like, I'll do a workout in the afternoon, and I went to a show, and I was jumping around, and I was definitely hands on knees by the end of a particular set there, and then this morning I woke up, I was like, oh God, I can feel it in the lower back, so I'm definitely not 100%, not just the voice, but the back is not 100% today either. But let's get off that tangent. I want to talk about what I have been listening to. Listening to lately is a band called Wonk Unit. That's right, WONK Unit, Wonk Unit. And it's funny because, thank you, Paul, for recommending this band to me, and they've been on my list. I've got a list of bands that I'm still trying to get through. And I don't know if this is worldwide, but if you hear something like Wonk Unit in the U.S., you're like, is that a hip-hop group? And maybe that's just me. Definitely not a hip-hop group. They are a band formed in 2006 in the U.K. They've actually got 8 studio albums. 8 since 2006. They're doing work. 8 albums. And those are 8 studio albums. I'm sure you can find some demos and EPs and that kind of stuff. But 8 full studio albums. The lead singer and guitarist is Alex Wonk. He's actually the main person. They're a full band, but this is, from what I can see and I've gathered, this is very similar to like the Toasters, where Robert, who's the main guy of the Toasters, and brings in other very talented musicians to play with him. But Alex Wonk is definitely the mastermind behind writing all the music and and composing a lot of stuff. It sounds like he also plays bass on some of the tracks now. I don't think he's playing bass and guitar at the same time, but I'm sure that means he's playing on some of the albums. If you want to get into them, I would definitely recommend checking out Go Easy and Strength. Those are two songs of theirs. Go Easy is an older song from a couple years ago. Strength is very new in the past. The past year or so with Strength. It's an incredibly unique sound, and there's definitely some variations among tracks, but those would be the two I would recommend to check out first. I enjoyed lots of their tracks as I was kind of going through their catalog, but check those out, and especially the music video for Strength. It gives strong 90s Southern California pop punk vibes. The sound is not fully that way as you go through all the tracks, but that's the kind of vibes it gives me. It's like a 90s pop punk, fun skate punk with a keyboard, and I got a weakness for a keyboard in bands. I love when the keys are in there, all about it. So highly recommend checking them out. And again, I wouldn't put them really in that bucket. It's just from my own life experience and listening to music, I get some of those vibes. And the video for Strength there's skateboarding in a pool, and it's like, oh yeah, no, we used to do that for music videos, man. That was the way to go. And really enjoy them. So check out Wonky Unit out of the UK. I'll be listening to them more and more and more. And again, thank you, Paul, for that recommendation, because they're great. If you like most of the bands that I talk about on Go Tell Us the Wall and Common Sense Sundays, you are going to enjoy Wonky Unit, at least to an extent, and start checking out their catalog. All right, Punkin Drublic, Arizona. We just got a location change as of yesterday. For those of you that are going, if you haven't seen, now I got to fly. Oh my gosh, it's just one of those days. My back isn't working, my voice isn't working, and now I got to flying around the studio. But Punkin Drublic in Arizona, location change for if you're planning on going there. Be aware of that. Go check Punkin Drublic posted it. It's moved from Big Surf, which apparently closed. It's a water park there in Tempe, Arizona. Closed. They sold the property, so they can't hold the event there anymore. And now it's going to be at a place called Scarizona. I think it's Scarizona, but it could be Scarizona. I think it's Scarizona, though. It's just hard to... I don't know the pronunciation of it. Doesn't matter. It's in Mesa. It's not far from Big Surf. So if if you're traveling there, you've already booked hotels and stuff, it shouldn't matter. But just make sure you're aware of that. It's not affecting my travel plans, really, because I was staying just in that area either way, and now it's just kind of a different location. I'll be curious if this is a little better, because I was kind of like, empty water park, they are having concerts. This is like a festival grounds that they're doing it, so this might end up being kind of a better situation anyway for all the beer and music out there at Punkin Drublic. All right, Friday. I had the immense pleasure of driving an hour and a half down to Costa Mesa on a Friday evening. That was the only bad part of it. But I had the pleasure of seeing Chaser down there at Tiki Bar in Costa Mesa. Chaser, you know that I love them. I've talked about them multiple times on this podcast. I've seen them many, many times since August. Cannot recommend them enough. Not only their music, but they put on one of the best live local shows that you're going to find. If you have the opportunity to check them out, do so. They're going to be touring Europe this summer. So even if you're not in the U.S. or specifically Southern California, because that's where they're from, it's easy. That's how I've been able to catch them a bunch of times. You'll have an opportunity as they tour Europe. Hopefully they're coming to your city. The energy, just off the chain. I was so happy to see Mike and all the boys up there on stage yet again, just killing it. The energy that they put out to the crowd, and the crowd gives back, is just something to see. It's a sight to behold. That's why my voice is not 100%. I was singing along, yelling along, cheering along. I actually didn't take any photos, so there's no photos on my Instagram. Excuse me. But shout out to Billy Skelly, who shot some fantastic photos. If you check out his photos, Chaser shared some of them as well. You might see a purple-headed dude going crazy there in the pit. And I'll be honest, I may have been, finger quote, flying in the pit. My good friend and Wall fan Adam, we were having some fun in the circle pit there, and I might have been picked up and literally swung around and flown around the pit, courtesy of Adam out there. Again, can't recommend Chaser enough. Had such a blast out there, and some super tasty tacos at Tiki Bar. Tiki Bar itself is fine. I wouldn't say anything bad about it, but I wouldn't be like, oh my God, Tiki Bar. There's some venues that are just better than others. But the tacos, they got like a taco stand in the back. So good. $2 tacos. Like, give me the tacos. Enjoyed it very much. And looking forward to seeing them again in 2 weeks. 2 weeks I get to see them play with Pennywise down there at Garden Amp. I was actually able to procure a ticket. Thank you, Jessica. Not thank you that you can't go, but thank you for since you couldn't go, for selling your ticket to me. All right. I don't want to get into this too much. This actually happened kind of right after we recorded the last episode, but I have to talk about the elephant in the room. There's not a huge connection for me necessarily, but there's a big connection to organizations that I'm connected with, and that's a band out of, I believe, they're out of Philly. I want to say Pittsburgh, and maybe I'm totally wrong on that, but they're a band called the Stolen Wheelchairs. Well, that band is pretty much no longer around, and I don't want to get into details. Feel free to just do a little you'll see it. But they did some things that shouldn't be happening anywhere, especially within the punk scene. Taking advantage of other people and doing things that are truly disgusting. There's just no excuse for these kinds of things anywhere, but especially in the punk scene. It's very fraternity boy-esque, for lack of a better word. That being said, I am happy to see the blowback that they're getting and the support for not supporting them, but supporting how the scene should be, and giving them what for, I guess, for lack of a better word. There's, like I said, there's no room for that in the scene. I will say one important thing to remember here is I think there are some people getting flack and getting thrown to the wolves along with people from Stolen Wheelchairs simply because they were associated. One of those would specifically be Punk Rock Saves Lives. As you know, I am a huge supporter of Punk Rock Saves Lives. I volunteer with them. Barstool Preachers are a huge supporter of Punk Rock Saves Lives. They've kind of been lumped in here along with the Riot Squad team over there because they've worked with Stolen Wheelchairs. And here's the thing. Don't lump them in because they've worked. I will say I have personally met the lead singer. I hung out with him at this show, Punk in the Park. I am wearing my Punk in the Park t-shirt today. Very nice guy. You would have had no idea. So don't lump other people in this situation. It's disgusting. We know that. I don't necessarily think we just move on and give them a pass. Nobody is. But you can't blame other people just because they knew somebody that did something horrendous. That's the important thing to remember here. And that's pretty much the last I'm going to talk about it. All right, one more thing, and then we're going to wrap it up for episode 71. Today, we're almost at the end of February. Today's February 27th. Tomorrow's the 28th. February is that very short month we have every year, which means you have a day and some change to pick up the February Bassists Against Racist t-shirt and design. Again, I mentioned in the beginning of February, but again, the current design features Edwin Santa Cruz of Make War. So if you haven't pre-ordered your shirt, make sure you do that right away. If you're in the U.S., you're going to order that through Chaos Merch. Love Chaos Merch. Gabby's one of the best out there. I've actually got some stuff coming from her soon, myself. And check out other stuff on Chaos Merch, not just the Bassists Against Racist. And then, of course, if you're in Europe, you're going to order through T-Mom Merch. T-Mom Merch has a ton of awesome merch as well. I obviously don't order through because it's a European merch site, but they have other bands on there as well, so make sure you're checking out T-Mom Merch if you're in Europe. And as always, thank you to Lynn, the brainchild behind all of this and creating this great campaign with Bassists Against Racists, and of course, ridiculously awesome art from the one and only fantastically talented Paul Smith of Zombie Teeth Clothing. Make sure you order your shirt. You got to get it by the 28th, otherwise it's gone. You're never going to be able to get that particular shirt again. All right, that's going to do it. I made it through the whole episode without my voice going out completely. Now, make sure you're following us on the social platforms, facebook.com/GoTellItToTheWall, youtube.com/GoTellItToTheWall, and of course my own personal Instagram account, which is at SoCalSean, SoCalSean. Make sure you follow me on there. You're going to get all kinds of not just Go Tell It to the Wall content, but other stuff on there as well. And of course, SeanO'RourkeLive.com, which includes links to all of those other platforms I just mentioned, as well as a link to our Patreon. Adam, you know you're gonna become a patron soon. I know we're getting a new one. He keeps hinting at it, and I know you're coming soon for that to become a patron. But everyone else out there, make sure you're checking out our Patreon. And if you don't want to do that, you can support us by picking up some merch. Merch website linked directly from SeanO'RourkeLive.com. We should be back next week. Same wall place, same wall time. But keep in mind, March is going to be a little bit nuts. I will blame Punk and Drublick. We got some scheduling issues, so March might be a little bit sparse, but I'll keep everyone updated through Facebook and through the website and everything else. So just know that that's probably coming. But we should be back, barring any other schedule changes, next Sunday with episode 72. All right, and until then, Wall fans, Common Sensors, this has been episode 71 of Common Sense Sundays with Go Tell It to the Wall, hosted by me, your absolute favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke. And remember, no matter what you do, no matter where you go, no matter who you're with, and especially no matter why you are doing it, always use common sense.